Hello everyone and welcome to this Bible breakdown. I'm Ronald, your host from Romans 9:20. Now here on this channel, my mission is simple. It's to unpack the sometimes complex and ancient words of the Bible to make them clear, relatable, and applicable to our lives today. No theological jargon, just straightforward truth for everyone. Today I'm diving into the book of Deuteronomy, a crucial book in the Old Testament that serves as a reminder of God's covenant with his people. And the principles and laws outlined in Deuteronomy are not just historical accounts, but lessons that we can apply to our lives today, guiding us in our spiritual growth and understanding. Specifically, we'll be exploring chapters 18, 19, and 20. These chapters give us incredible insights into how the ancient Israelites were to live as God's people, focusing on things like leadership, justice, and even warfare. So grab your Bibles, your favorite beverage, and let's break it down together. Before we jump into these verses, let's get a quick overview of what each of these chapters is about. Chapter 18 is about responsibilities of leaders. Now, this chapter primarily focuses on the roles and responsibilities of the priests and Levites, the spiritual leaders of Israel. It outlines how they were to be supported and the prohibitions against pagan practices, which were common among the surrounding nations and involved rituals and beliefs that were contrary to the worship of the one true God, Yahweh. This chapter emphasizes the importance of listening to God's true prophets and staying true to the Israelites' unique relationship with God. Chapter 19, here, we find instructions for establishing cities of refuge, providing a place for safety for those who accidentally cause someone's death. It also lays down principles for just legal proceedings, particularly concerning witnesses, and addresses the punishment for false testimony. Chapter 20 addresses laws of warfare. Now, this chapter seems a bit out of place, but it provides crucial instructions for the Israelites when they went to war. It details exemptions from military services and outlines how they were to approach battles, always with the recognition of God's involvement. So as you can see, these chapters cover a wide range of topics, all aimed at helping Israel live as a righteous and secure nation under God's guidance. Now let's get into the verse-by-verse breakdown. Chapter 18, verses 1 and 2, we start with the Levites, the tribe specifically set apart for service in the tabernacle and later in the temple. Now these verses clearly state that they were to have no territorial inheritance like the other tribes. Their inheritance was the Lord himself and the offerings made to him. Think about this. Their entire livelihood depended on the generosity and faithfulness of the other Israelites in giving their tithes and offerings. It was a system designed to ensure that the Levites could dedicate themselves fully to spiritual matters without the distractions of managing land and agriculture. Verses 3 to 5 details the specific portions of the sacrifices that were to be given to the priests, which included the shoulders, the cheeks, and the stomach of the sacrificed animals. This was their provision, ensuring that they were cared for as they carried out their priestly duties. Now, it's a practical demonstration of God's love and care and concern for his people, ensuring that those serving him were well provided for. In verses 6 to 8, we see a provision for the Levites who might live in other towns and desire to serve at the central sanctuary. They were to be welcomed and share in the provisions equally with the Levites already serving there. Now, this promotes unity and ensures that anyone called to serve could do so without financial hardship, and that fostered a sense of inclusion and community among the Levites. In verses 9 through 14, a crucial warning. God strictly forbids the Israelites from participating in the detestable practices of the nations around them. Things like child sacrifice, divination, sorcery, interpreting omens, witchcraft, casting spells, and consulting mediums. Now, these were seen as seeking guidance outside of God. Verses 15 to 19 is a pivotal prophecy. God promises to raise a prophet from among their brothers, just like Moses, and they must listen to him. Now, this prophecy is significant for Christians as it points to Jesus Christ. Just as Moses was the mediator of the Old Covenant, Jesus is the mediator of the New Covenant. He speaks God's words, and we are called to obey him, reinforcing the continuity and authority of God's message throughout all of history. And finally, in verses 20 to 22, since God promises through prophets, he also provides a way to discern false ones. So a prophet who speaks presumptuously in God's name or whose words do not come to pass is not to be feared. This emphasizes the importance of testing what we hear and aligning it with God's established word. So what's the central message of Deuteronomy 18? It's about the importance of God-ordained leadership, and also the dangers of seeking spiritual guidance from anywhere other than God himself. Now, the Levites and priests were to be supported so that they could focus on their sacred duties, and God warned against pagan practices that would lead them astray. The promise of a future prophet fulfilled in Jesus, that highlights that God would always provide clear direction for his people. Now, in our modern context, this means that we should be discerning about the voices that we listen to and anchor ourselves in the teachings of Jesus and the Bible. This empowers us to take responsibility for our own spiritual growth and understanding, ensuring that we're not led astray by false prophets or teachings. It's a call to action, reminding us of our responsibility to discern and align with God's truth. In Deuteronomy chapter 19, verses 1 through 10, as the Israelites take possession of the promised land, they are commanded to set aside 3 cities of refuge in easily accessible locations. Now, it's to provide a sanctuary for someone who accidentally kills another person without malice or intent. This protects them from the avenger of blood, a cultural and historical figure responsible for avenging the death of a family member until their case can be judged. However, intentional murders were not to find refuge in these cities. In verses 11 through 13, this section clarifies that if someone intentionally murders another person, they should be brought to justice and put to death. Now, the city of refuge offers no protection in such cases. Verses 14, this seemingly small verse, it prohibits moving a neighbor's boundary markers. Now, land ownership was vital, and boundary stones were crucial for establishing and maintaining property rights. So tampering with them was a serious offense, undermining the social order and potentially leading to disputes and injustice. Verses 15 through 21, this section lays down fundamental principles for legal proceedings. It states that a single witness is not enough to convict someone of a crime. There must be at least 2 or 3 witnesses. This was a safeguard against false accusations and ensured a more reliable basis for judgment. Furthermore, it outlined the severe consequences for a malicious witness who falsely accuses someone. They were to receive the punishment they intended for the accused. That's the principle of an eye for an eye. This serves as a powerful deterrent against perjury and protects the innocent. Chapter 19 is all about establishing a just and fair legal system within the community. It provides for cities of refuge, showing God's mercy towards those who act unintentionally. And at the same time, the strict punishment for intentional murder and false accusations highlights the importance of justice and truth. The prohibition against moving boundary markers highlights the need to respect property rights. And in modern day application, the principle of justice laid out in this chapter are still incredibly relevant today. Our legal systems are built on the idea of due process, the need for multiple credible witnesses, and consequences for those who lie under oath. Now, the concept of cities of refuge can remind us of the importance of offering support and rehabilitation to those who have made mistakes, while still upholding accountability for our actions. We should strive for fairness and truth in all of our dealings and stand against false accusations and injustice. Chapter 20, verses 1 to 4, as the Israelites prepare for war against their enemies, Moses instructs them not to be afraid of the size or strength of the opposing armies. Why? Because the Lord their God who brought them out of Egypt would be with them and fight for them. This emphasizes the importance of trusting in God's power and presence, even in the face of daunting challenge. Now, verses 5 to 9, they outline several exemptions from military service. These include men who had recently built a new house and had not yet dedicated it, those who had planted vineyards and not yet enjoyed its fruit, those who were newly married, and those who were faint-hearted and fearful. Now, the reason for these exceptions is rooted in ensuring stability, allowing men to fulfill essential life stages, and preventing the spread of fear within the ranks. In verses 10 to 15, before attacking a city, the Israelites were to offer it in terms of peace. Now, if the city surrendered and opened its gates, all of the people were to become forced labor and serve Israel. However, if the city refused to make peace and engage in battle, then the men were to be struck down, but the women, children, and livestock could be taken as plunder. Verses 16 to 18 discusses the destruction of certain nations. Now, it is a difficult passage where God commands the destruction of inhabitants of a specific nation within Canaan. This command was specific to these particular nations who were deeply entrenched in idolatrous and moral corrupt practices that threatened to contaminate the Israelites' relationship with God. It was an act of judgment within a specific historical context. Verses 19 and 20, the preservation of fruit trees. Even in times of war, the Israelites were instructed not to destroy fruit-bearing trees. They were to be preserved for food. Now, this seemingly small detail, it reveals a principle of responsible stewardship and a distinction between fighting against people and indiscriminately destroying resources. Chapter 20 provides guidelines for warfare, emphasizing reliance on God, offering terms of peace when possible, and demonstrating a degree of restraint in conflict. Now, the exceptions from military service highlight the importance of considering individual circumstances and also preventing unnecessary fear. The command for the total destruction of certain Canaanite nations was a unique judgment within a specific historical context due to their persuasive wickedness. Finally, the preservation of fruit trees. It teaches us about responsible stewardship even in difficult situations. So for modern day application, while we hopefully won't be engaging in the same kind of warfare described here, the principle of relying on God in challenging situations and speaking peaceful resolutions whenever possible, it's still very relevant. We can only learn about the importance of considering the well-being of others and practicing responsible stewardship of the resources that we have, even when facing conflict or difficulty. The exceptions offer a reminder to be mindful of individual circumstances and avoid placing undue burdens on others. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today breaking down these chapters. We've seen how God provided for his spiritual leaders, established a system for justice and fairness, and even gave instructions for warfare. The overarching message is clear. God desires his people to live justly, securely, and in complete reliance on him. These ancient laws, while specific to their time, they offer timeless principles that can still guide us today in how we lead, how we treat others, and how we face the challenges of life, always trusting in God's provision and guidance. Now, thank you so much for joining me on this breakdown of Deuteronomy. I'm going to leave it here for today. I hope this has been helpful and that it may have shed some light on these important chapters. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with someone who might find it helpful, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or questions. And of course, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future Bible breakdowns. God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next video.